Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Max, and I am part of Maxon training team. And yeah, I'm really am excited about motion pictures, the craft of motion pictures images, and I'm really truly inspired by it. Anything from the moment the scene is captured in the camera, in, to the moment where you enjoy the film, the final image on your preferred display. So I'm really am passionate about it. I'm really passionate learning about it, and that's what great because in Maxon training team we got to collaborate with a lot of talented people in the team, and yeah. In today's topic, let's talk a little bit about creating a filmic look, emulating or borrowing the look of a film. This is like a very common topic when we are talking about color grading. It's like, hey, can you make it more filmic? But is it the standard though? Is it like a must? Not really. It is. It is a. It is a static choice. And why am I saying that it is a static choice? And why it's kind of like the beauty standard when you're trying to create looks? Because I may argue that film has been over among us like over century. It's like 150 years old, and this has like a very visceral effects to our subconscious, and then we tend to relate to it subconsciously. And then whenever we create something, we defaulted into that. Our eye defaulted into film. Hey, let's make it something filmic. Thus, the term filmic, right? So whenever we want to create something filmic, you know that the process sometimes it can be easy, it can be complicated, depends on how you want it. The question is like how close or how accurate do you want it to be? It can be really easy, but if it's like one-to-one close emulations, very accurate, it can be like really crazy, really quick, and that's where you need the help of color scientists and lab image technicians during the scanning and during the emulations process, right? But if you just want to get to know the very basic characteristic of film, for example, for your next look, for example, all you need to do is just train your eyes, really. Train your eyes, consume a lot of media which is shot on film. So, for example, watch a lot of movies. Netflix, for example, there are tons of good movies shot on film there. And use website like ShotDeck because this website it has a lot of like clips, still images from film, and then you can browse them you can do your research there, and you can kind of like see what type of like look each film is going for. And then if you're asking yourself, I want more, I would like to know which movie shot using which film, using which camera, there are also available, like the metadata is available in ShotDeck, and also some other website like a shotonwhat.com. Or even if you want to, you can even go to Kodak website and see what are the piece shot on film. And then next thing, the one that's really easy that you can use to train your eyes is that simply watch a lot of movies. You probably at some point in your life bought a DVD, for example. And if you aware, DVDs or Blu-rays, they have section called the special features, and normally on those special features you have the BTS, and the BTS is normally like the naked versions of the film. You don't have all the filters, you don't have all the looks. So for example, when you have those footage, capture it as a still image and then compare it with the look of that film. And if you think like if you do the homework right, you probably can subtract what are those difference, the BTS and then the final piece of the movie. This is actually a collaborations project that we did, me and Tony Barry. Tony Barry shot it in Santa Cruz, and I graded it using a very similar technique that I'm going to show you today. So before we move on, let's watch the complete movie. So this is a piece that was shot using several different cameras. We use two Canon cameras and one Sony cameras, and everything was done in ACES, and Magic Bullet Looks is also involved into the process. So let me just play the complete piece.
Everybody's bike like identifies who they are, and all the little things you could do, seeing what else is out there, and being comfortable, being uncomfortable is like a balance, because anything could happen. But overall, it's just an exhilarating feeling. Even though you're riding a group, at the same time you're an individual. When you see somebody on the side of the road on a bike, you stop, you wave. When you see somebody riding by, even if they're in a different type of bike, it's just like a rule of the road. You're a part of that environment when you're on a bike that you never would have known existed. It's a full spectrum, and it's beautiful.
So, talking about film emulations, before we jump on into the film emulations itself, I think understanding the film pipeline is like very beneficial for you, because when we are emulating film, what type of film that we need to emulate? That's the questions that you need to ask yourself, right? There are apparently plenty of steps. The scenes were captured using the film negative, and then the film negative was cut and then used as the original cut, and then from there we transfer it into some intermediate films, either the intermediate positive, IP and IN, and then from there you can also go into the print films. And whenever, the thing that you need to be aware is that whenever we are going into this from one film, like film negative, into the intermediate films and then the print films, you need to be aware that there will be image quality degradations. And you may argue that, is that bad or is that not bad? But I will say that it adds the mojo in the look, because that's what it is. So if you, for example, if you watch the last interview with Dave, I forgot his last name, the colors from the Batman, with Matt Reeves, and they're really talking just literally it. Everything was shot digital and then transferred into film, and they go way further into the intermediate films to get all the nuance and then characteristic, and then it is transferred back into digital, and then they color it there. Dave Cole, by the way, the name of the colorist. And right. So when emulating film stocks, the thing that you need to understand that it is like very, how do you call it? It's simple, but it's not easy. It involves a lot of math and test charts. So probably like the over generalized, please apologize for this. Somebody may hate me after this. You need to shoot like test chart in the very controllable lighting situations with a film camera, using film stocks, using like a very specific film stock, and then the same footage is scanned, and then after that the result will be compared. You need to compare that with the footage that you shot with the digital cameras, and then the difference that you can do, you can measure the difference using like software like Nuke, or using like some DCTL available in Resolve, like Tetra, for example, and you can kind of get the difference and capture the essence of that. But that's when you want to go into like the hard and accurate way. But if you want to just to get something simple, something fast for your video productions, you don't need to be worried about that, because if you have Maxon one product, you probably have Maxon Magic Bullet Suite. And in Magic Bullet Suite, there's a plugins that called Magic Bullet Film, which is exactly the scan of different film negative and different film prints. And using Magic Bullet Films, you can kind of emulate, you can kind of get into the ballpark and get the nuance of film. And then you can further tweak it to get all the details. So let me show you Magic Bullet Film. So Magic Bullet Film, it is a collection of 22 different film negatives and 4 film prints. and it is available in multiple host apps, but it runs really nicely in Premiere Pro, in After Effects, and also in DaVinci Resolve. If you want to apply Magic Bullet Film, you can just simply go to your effect panel, type in bullet, and you'll see all the tools inside the Magic Bullet looks, and just simply drag and drop film into your clip. And then as soon as you drag and drop your Magic Bullet Film into your clip, it can change the look from, it can change the look of your clip from here to that, just like really easy. What you need to do is like, you need to tell Magic Bullet Film what type of clip that you're working. Is it a video or Rec 709 clip here, or a video clip that was shot using a flat profile, or is it a lock profile, a lock clip? And then after that, you can choose the different film negative, and then you can combine with different film positive. And using so, like here, I can go to Fujifilm, or I can just default it into the Kodak 2383. What's nice here though, is that you can mix and match film. For example, if I want Fujifilm negative and I want Kodak print, that's okay. You can do that. And you can still have like the color temperature and tint and exposure control and everything in between to change the look. What's nice is that the exposure control, for example, is photometrically accurate. It's like the gain operations in the linear space. So you never got like a hard clipping onto your clip. You always have like a soft highlight roll off on the highlight, and then the blacks just a little bit faded up a little bit, and you can still change the look of it. What's really nice, and my personal favorite, is that this slider called Vintage Modern Slider. So the more I slide it toward the left, the less contrasty it becomes and the less faded it looks. It is like as if you are shooting the footage using the film that you put at the back of your fridge for like, I don't know, 10 years, and you found out, okay, I have a film stock, and let's just shoot it with it. It's like that. And then if you slide it more into the modern territory, you can kind of get it like this complementary color, unified complementary color. A shadow will be cooled down, and then after that, the highlights and midtones is warmed up. So it's operating between the teal and orange area, right? And yeah, that is Magic Bullet Film. Right. When we're talking about film, what we need to understand is that this tiny little qualities in film that you can see. So, for example, if we check our clip again, before and after film, this is before, and this is after, you can really see that there are changes in three major areas: the saturations, the contrast, and then also the texture. Right? So the contrast, when you are using film print, normally you have like a very hard tone curve applied to your image, but that's how film look is. And then the saturations, what you need to understand is that whenever we try to emulate film, in film, if you have something shot in film, the brighter a color is, the more saturated a color is, the less bright they are, the darker they are, the denser they are. And you can really see that when applying Magic Bullet Film to your footage. And understanding this characteristic can easily help you to how do you call it, come with a good understanding of film emulations. And about texture, whenever we are trying to emulating film, things that normally got overlooked are really tiny details like halations. These are the things that we despise it back in the day. We always want to get rid of it. But now we cannot complete film emulations without these tiny things. Halations. Halations is like this red, how do you call it, highlight between the darkest and then the brightest area of the image. So whenever you shot on that film, it's just like a very it's the very mechanical nature of the camera that creates this. And yeah, another big part of it is that film has grain. It's an organic material, and then when we are shooting on top of it, it has texture. It's more like something that you can feel more rather than you can see. And you can also emulate these things, halations, grain, and everything else in Magic Bullet Looks, because in the new release of Magic Bullet Looks, there are plenty more film emulations tools. So you can emulate film negative, you can emulate film print, And then you can also emulate halations and then optical diffusions and all of the things in between. And let me show you that. So Magic Bullet Looks is our, how do you call it, flagship tools that contain all the tools inside Magic Bullet Suite. So if you are familiar with Magic Bullet Suite tools like Mojo, Film, Colorista, they are also available inside Magic Bullet Looks. And it's very intuitive, it's very easy, and it supports ACES. That's what's nice, because it's 2022. Come on, who doesn't work color manage this day, right? And yeah, let me show you Magic Bullet Looks. Again, to use Magic Bullet Looks, simply just drag and drop Magic Bullet Looks into your clip and just hit Edit Look. Right, so let me walk you through a little bit to the user interface of Magic Bullet Looks. It's very easy. Magic Bullet Looks comes with 300 over 300 fully customizable presets, and you can access that on the Look tab. You can click Look, or the shortcut, just press L, and you have like the drawer open for you. It has like 300 different presets that you can use. And then you can also save your own presets. Like you can see, I already saved several presets. And then to close that, just simply press L again. And then we also have like several different scopes. There are RGB parade for sure, some slice graph, and the hue saturations or your vector scope. And what's nice is that these scopes, you can put it like whenever you want, however you want, and you can resize it if you need it to, right? So let me just close this. And the tools, there are plenty of good tools, nice and fun tools in Magic Bullet Looks. And to understand the tools more, I like to understand like this. There are like 4 different categories: selective, cameras, color corrections, and film emulations. The selective tools are the tools that you normally use on set. Like for example, if you want to flag something, those are the tools that you can mimic inside Magic Bullet Looks. So basic exposure, basic contrast, and pivot are available there. Gradient is also available there, or spot or fill lighting. And then the second one is like the camera tools. The camera tools are the tools that you normally put or you achieve inside your cameras. For example, think about filters. Those are the tools that you can use. So for example, like optical diffusions. Optical diffusions is like the newest tools that we introduced in the latest release. Sorry. Sometimes when you're starting like using optical diffusions, things can get like, oh, what are those parameters? And if you are like me, you probably like love to use presets. These presets are modeled after like a very famous diffusion filters available in the market. So that's really nice. So for example, one of you like I like to shoot with Black Promise 1.4. And you can just like simply drag and drop it. And for example, if I just want to limit it on the highlights, I can do that just by cranking up the highlights only area. So for example, at the moment you see the white part of the image are the part where the optical diffusions is used. It's very subtle. So let us just drop it and let's go back to tools. And the next tools are the set of tools. The next set of tools are the color correction tools. So if you are familiar with lift, gamma, gain, and then those 3 wheels that you normally use to affect your shadow, midtones, and highlight, those are the tools that you can use in the color correction category. So those are the tools that you need your computer for. And the last one is the tools that I really love is the film emulation tools. Let me just drag it. So we have the film negative, we have the halations and film print, and also the process in between, like the print bleach bypass or the 2-strip color process. Let me show you that in the next clip. But before moving on, I forgot to tell you that the most important thing in Magic Bullet Looks is this set of tools organizations here, which is called the tool chain. The tool chain is like really flexible. If you want to use one tool, for example, you can simply just drag and drop it there, and you can always reorganize it. Depends on how you like it, and you will have different effect on where you put your tools in the tool chain. And before using the tool chain, if you see like at the outermost of the tool chain, there are two tabs called the input and output. This is like the color management area of Magic Bullet Looks. So for example, if you're running Magic Bullet Looks and a host that supports color management. So for example, if you're using Resolve, for example, and you are working using ACCCT, this is the area where you can use that and simply just drag and drop mode into Open Color IO, ACES, and then use your input as ACCCT. That's when you are working with ACCCT. But in my case, I'm using footage that coming from Sony S-Log3, S-Gamut3, and I throw it to ACCCT. I throw it to ACES, and then outputting it back into Rec 709. So how do I do that? I did that just by simply pressing, selecting the Open Color IO ACES mode, tagging the correct input, that is the Sony S-Log S-Gamut3, and then the output to Rec 709. But if you want to output it back to S-Log3, you can also do that by simply selecting same as input. So that's the user interface of Magic Bullet Looks. Now let's see some cool film emulations using Magic Bullet Looks, right? So the basic form of film emulations in Magic Bullet Looks is that similar steps that you can do in other app. Like I simply just drop the film print emulations at the back. You can do that. And what's nice in Magic Bullet Looks is that you can just use either just the print film or the combinations of the print film and negative film. So here what I did is that I'm using Magic Bullet print film print, and then in the front I use the contrast to play around with the contrast level of my image. And I can do the other way around. As you can see, if I'm doing it the other way around, it means like I put the film print emulation first and then I deal in the contrast. It has different effects. So the how do you call it? The structure of the tools is important. It matters. And the other thing that you can do is that before the film print, if you want to, you can drop in the film negative. You can put it before the contrast or after the contrast. And in the film negative, you have 22 different scans of film ranging from Kodak and Fuji, and also some homemade film. Like it's actually based on something but tweaked further by the team. That's under Prolochrome or something like that. And in fact, I already saved some presets, and let's just go there. Here, I'm using Kodak 5219 on my film negative, and I print it onto the 2383. And in between, so for example, if I want to emulate the lap process in between, like for example, bleach bypass to get more contrast and less saturation down to it, I can just drop in the print bleach bypass onto the tool chain. But instead of dropping it after the film print, I can just drop it before the film print and just crank up the silver retentions of the tool. And as you see that by cranking the silver retentions, the more silver retentions, the more silver, this is the silver highlight, by the way, that you can find in film. The more I retain the silver, the more exposure I lost. And then just for that, we have like the exposure compensations. You can put it up a little bit. And if you want to, there are tons more like tools that you can use. Like for example, the two-strip process. Let's just put it in between. Or the stuff that we haven't talked much is the halations. I talked to you about that before, right? So the halations is like a very simple tool that you can use to emulate the halations effect that you can see in the film. And it comes with several different presets, the more than 35, the anamorphic, and the vintage 35. Or you can dial in these presets. Like for example, I select the vintage 35. If I want to see more, I can adjust the size and the amount. And I can also, if I dial in like on and off, turn it on and off, I think I can see that in the shirt. Sorry. I can see that in the shirt that I am emulating the halations effect. And if I want to limit the halations effect only on the highlight part of the image, I can just simply use the preview highlight and drag in the highlights only. So instead of having the halations applied on all the area of the image, I can just dial in to the like very bright highlights of the image, maybe something like that. And if I fit the frame, it looks just like that. And then what I want to show you again, these project, the one that we shot, the one that Tony shot, we shot like in purpose to do a comparison between a practical diffusions and the diffusions that you can emulate in Magic Bullet Looks. So for example, here we have some footage that is, that was shot without, that was shot without practical diffusions, and some footage that was shot in using practical diffusions. Like we use the fog machines, and then we wafted it, waited for a couple of times until it becomes haze, and then our purpose was try to see if there is any difference to emulate something inside Magic Bullet Looks, or which one better. I mean, I don't know. Let's see that. For example, if I want to work on this image to emulate the kind of there you go, Haze and Flare. Like for example, if you have a footage that you shot without haze, but then you have another clip that you apparently have haze, and you want to add haze after the fact, you can also do that inside Magic Bullet Looks simply by using the Haze and Flare tools. And the Haze and Flare tools is like very easy to use. It is available in the camera category. There you go, Haze and Flare. So for example, if I turn it off, by default I have like this settings going on, and then I have the spillage that I can dial in. And if I don't want to have like this effect, I can try to turn off the reflections. And by simply doing that, you can, like by using a correct reference image, you can try to match with your eyes the amount of the diffusions that you want to match. And on top of that, on top of the haze, I'm also using the optical diffusions, and it was set to a chromatic bloom warm, and that's what we did. And another technique that I want to show you is that there is a thing that we did at the end by using like a telecine net. That is like to we want to soften the amount of the black point of the image, and we can do that by using the telecine net tool. So for example, let me just disable this. Telecine net tools is actually emulating the process of the telecine. And the side effect of using the telecine net is that it works like the diffusions, but instead of working in the highlight area, it is softening the shadow area. So it will adjust the softness. It will introduce softness into the shadow area. So in this case, if I turn it off and on, I see that there is an exposure changes. And if I want to balance the exposure so that there won't be any much changes before and after the telecine net, I can also use the exposure compensations. And that's like a very simple trick that we use to soften the shadow a little bit. And another thing, like I mentioned before, is saturations, right? That film normally has like a saturations, how do you call it? A very bright, very colorful color. But then the more colorful they are, the darker they will be. I mean, in other app, you can use like technique by jumping into different color space. But then in Looks, there are a lot more simpler tools that you can use. Like for example, the color remap tool. And color remap tool is is a very simple tool that you can use to select a target color, and then you can map it onto itself, or you can select a particular color and map it onto different color. So for example, another thing that I stumble upon about saturations is that I really love doing saturations in LAB color space, CIE LAB color space. And LAB color space works slightly differently. So instead of just cranking up the saturation slider and introducing some artifacts there that you normally don't like, I can use that inside my color remap. And to one things that you need to understand about LAB color space is that it works in the color coordinates. So if you put a positive, it is a color space that consists of three different primaries, the three different channels, the L channels, the A channels, and B channels. The L channels is just literally the luminance. The A is A and B is the color channels, and the A channels is operating between magenta and green. So if you're putting a positive value into the A channel, you will get magenta. Meanwhile, if you're putting a negative value onto the A channel, you get the green. So it's an opposite color. The same with the B, it's a blue and yellow, right? So in order to emulate that inside a color remap, I can simply just change the color model to be working on LAB and set the preserve luminance to 1 because I just want to affect the color, not the luminance. And I can create 4 different color chart. So in this case, I will map the very first one onto magenta and map it onto itself. The second one, I'll map it onto green and then map it onto itself. And then the third one is like the B channel, the blue, and map it onto itself. And the last one would be the yellow. And then we'll map it onto itself. So at the moment, it should not do anything, right? So in order for me to introduce more saturations, I simply can just go into each of this color and reduce the sampled color. So by reducing the amount of saturations of the sampled color and having it like mapped to the fullest, like in the target color, in the result color, I can like play with the amount of that particular color on the image. So for example, on the magenta, I'll just reduce it a little bit, and you can see it is introducing more like magenta on the image. That would be too far. And I'll balance it with green. Of course, not too much. Let me just show you. Like that. Maybe somewhere right there. And let's push the blue a little bit more. And maybe tame the yellow a little bit. So, that is a simple trick using color remap to increase saturations of your image between the film negative and the film print. And yeah, that's the very simple things that you can do on Magic Bullet looks when you want to emulate film print. And one more thing that I want to show you is that this thing, where is it? Yeah, there you go. The shutter streak tool. The shutter streak tool. This is also a nice tool that you can use in between your film emulations. In this case, I put it right before the film negative because shutter streak tool is that like the tools that you normally use on your camera when you are like when you're shooting with the camera. And then after that, you leave the gate open, and then you proceed to next film. Sometimes you have like this light leak, and you can do that like very easy using the shutter streak tool inside Magic Bullet Looks. And the control is like very easy. There are several presets. No, apparently there are non-presets. And you can change the size, change the boost, and change the fall off. And that's literally it. So I hope I give you kind of like a rough guideline on the very simple film emulations process inside Magic Bullet Looks.